All right, this morning rather, we are here with Lorraine and Newell Eaton, and we're going to do an oral interview for history. It would be nice now, just to start, maybe you could just yourselves identify as far as your name and your age, and maybe starting with you, Newell, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what your full name is and how old you are, where you grew up, that sort of thing, a little bit of personal background. Could you share that with us?
I was born and brought up in Newburyport for a couple of years, and then I went and lived with my grandfather and grandmother till I was about 7 or 8.
Yes.
Then I went back home. And I went to Salisbury Middle School there. And then when I left there, I went back to Newburyport. But, I'm trying to think of what I did.
Of course, of course. So you went to Newburyport schools
I
then?
went to the Newburyport grammar schools and high school. And when I got out of grammar school or high school, I joined the Navy, and I was in the Navy for 4 years. When I came home, I just poked around a bit, and I met Lorraine. And that was the end of me.
Or the very beginning. Lorraine,
But
how old are you now?
I'm 91.
You're 91.
Yeah.
And Newell, you are how old?
93.
93. 93. So you speak about, you've brought us up to the time when you met Lorraine. A little bit about you, Lorraine. Did you live in Newburyport?
I lived in Haverhill, Mass,
Uh-huh.
and Newell lived in Newburyport, and we met in Merrimack, Mass, at a dance for the Grange.
Is that right?
Yeah, and that was in 1953. And so we've been married 68 years,
Imagine that.
and we have 4 kids.
1953.
We met in 1953, when you were on leave.
Oh.
And we have 4 kids, 3 daughters and a son.
Yes.
Yeah, and in all, with our grandchildren and everything, there's 18 of us.
Imagine, 18.
Yeah. And Newell built this house that we live in for 62 years.
Is that right? Is that right?
Right?
Yeah.
And that brings us back to you, Newell, because my understanding is that you were a cabinet maker, a carpenter cabinet maker.
That's what I studied for,
Yes.
and that's what I used to put on the papers. But when I got out of the service, we were looking around for a place, you know, and my uncle says, "I'll give you a piece of land for $1, and do whatever you want with it," you know. So I saw a picture of this house in the paper,
Yes.
and I liked the outside of it. And so I says, "Well, I'm gonna build that house." So I hired somebody that sawed up mill, I should say mill. He was milling the logs, and he'd cut them up to whatever I wanted, you know,
Yes.
between the 2x4s and the planking and stuff. And we cut down most of the trees out in the yard here, but that was before anything was cut up, you know. And me and the fella, I used to help him out. I'd carry the boards and stack them out. And finally I figured, rough figuring, that I had enough to do the house. And so I got, after it dried up, the logs dried up, I figured I'd go to work on them. So I cut them a size, and I started building the house.
Imagine.
And I built it mostly by myself.
Is that right? Is that
And
right?
I-
What an undertaking.
My uncle come over once in a while and he'd give me a hand. And, oh, my father did too. But
Now, I'm curious, Newell, when you spoke about your uncle, who said he would give you this for $1. Now, was he from Hampton Falls, or how did he own this land?
he lived in Hampton Falls. They used to live in Lynn, and then he bought this piece of land and went down all the way to the corner, I think,
Really?
and over that way. And I forget how many acres he had.
And his name was what, Newell? What was his name?
Albert Pavia.
Albert
He's
Pavia.
next door.
Oh, yes, of course, Albert.
And it was pretty good, you know. I designed the house. I took the measurements that I had on paper after I got going on it, you know. And, we got the cellar in and started building it.
What an achievement.
We lived in Amesbury before here.
Before-
Newell built the 17-foot cabin cruiser,
Oh, yes.
and that's what helped
Yeah.
starting us.
And I
you know.
sold it and got enough money for cement work and stuff.
Is
Yeah.
that right? This the one that's on the table here.
Yes,
Mm.
yep.
That's quite a significant part of the story then. How about you, Lorraine? I mean, when you moved into this house, what year? What year?
1950, when did we move here?
I'm trying to think.
So we got married in 55, 7 years, or 62.
I
A
see.
couple of years
Yeah,
after marriage.
1962.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we had 4 kids to bring with us.
You already had those 4 children.
Yeah.
I see. So you planned the rooms accordingly, didn't you? Lorraine, this has been, it would seem, and I think Newell would agree, that you've almost been the center of this home all these many, many years. Can you tell us a little bit about how that was? And were you a mom that was at home all the time? Or
Well,
did you work?
we lived in Amesbury.
Right.
So, and Newell worked in Amesbury. And at night, every night from April until December 5th, when we moved here, Newell would come here every night and build a house.
Imagine,
Yeah,
imagine.
Of course, I took care of the kids.
Sure, sure. And did you do any work outside the home, or were you right here in the home? Were you a homemaker, so to speak?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I worked at the Western Electric for a while
I see.
in Haverhill.
Yeah, I see,
Yeah.
I see. What has it been like? I know, but I'd like to have you describe it. Not only having this as a family home, but what has made it a family home?
The family.
The family. Yeah,
The family.
family. Tell us about those gatherings, because I think you've had quite a few gatherings
Yeah.
here.
When we have birthdays and anniversaries, Christmas, Thanksgiving, there's 18 of us here. Yeah.
Imagine.
And they all fit here.
I thought it was about time we went to one of their houses.
He always says that, you know. But Mother wants it here.
Of course, it's absolutely.
Right,
That's-
Eva?
Yes.
And Eva's our baby.
No,
She's the youngest, yeah.
good.
So it's
Maybe-
been wonderful because Newell was a fireman and, you know, and he building inspector and on the school board. And he did everything in town.
Sure.
And I think he built a couple of the first voting booths, right, Newell?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Tell us that it's interesting that you bring it up, Lorraine, about activities here in town. How different was Hampton Falls in those days as compared to today? I mean, obviously there's quite a difference, but can you just speak to that a little bit? How was it as different as it is today?
Well, I think it was much different because everybody knew anything. We had the fire department, and I was on the fire department for about 30 years.
Yes.
No pay, everything was done
Volunteer.
volunteer. And And everybody, most everybody that lived in town was on the fire department in those early days.
Mhm, mhm.
And
That was quite a little group, Neil.
it
Newell.
was, you know, when I turned 50, they threw me a big party here.
50.
You know, they put a case of beer in one of the fire trucks and
Yeah.
drove by the house and put the siren on and stopped, and we all had a beer.
Imagine. I wonder what they would do today at 93.
We wouldn't do this.
No, no, it's a little different.
Because and then I don't know, it was quite a few years after. I think I was on there for almost 30 years,
Mhm.
just running to the fires, putting up the fire and going back to work.
So you would be called if there were a fire during the day.
Yeah,
You would have to come off the work that you were doing.
yeah, yeah. That's how everybody that was on it worked, you know.
Yeah, they all had a phone in the house, a special phone
Mm-hmm.
that they would call Newell, yeah. Then after a while, Newell became self-employed.
Yes,
You know, he
yes.
put his sign up on the big tree out there.
Is that right?
Right?
Yes,
And you were in great demand, I know, because you've done a lot of work in homes here in Hampton
yeah,
Falls.
I've done a lot of work around here.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Well, when he started out, he had his shop down cellar, you know,
Yes.
but then as it grew, it's why he built the barn out back.
I see.
Yeah, right?
Right. Then, I had something right there, but it's gone now.
It'll come back.
Yeah.
It will come back. But the town was of course much smaller as
Yeah,
far as
yeah.
population.
Right.
People knew each other much,
Yeah.
much more.
Everybody seemed to know everybody else, you know.
Yeah, yeah. How about the Village Green Fair? Do you have some good memories of that?
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
You cooked a lot of hamburgers and hot dogs, right?
Gene Heel was the fire chief, you know, and he says, you, and you, go down this place and get this. They donated it to the department. And then somebody would jump in their pickup and get a couple of guys and go down and get it, and they were driving around all day long picking up stuff.
Yes.
And some of the stuff was good, and some of it was, you know, so-so.
Do you remember who else was involved in that Village Green Fair?
God, George Merrill,
Yes.
Was Maryland,
Mr. Ken, I call him Mr. Kenny.
Bill
Bob
Kenny.
Woodis,
Yeah, Bob Woodis, yeah.
and
Punky Merrill, and Bob Davies, I bet.
Yes, sure,
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
And of course, the ladies
yeah,
from from the fire station,
The
right?
Ladies Auxiliary. Yeah.
Ladies Auxiliary, right.
Right.
They used to do a lot of cooking.
Yes, yes, I remember that well.
Yeah.
I belong to that.
You got into that?
Yes, yes, I did, yeah.
That was very interesting,
That's all quite different today.
you know. It is different today.
Now, what about town meetings? Where they were not held as they are today. Can you just share a little bit of that with us, going to town meeting? Because that was at the town hall, wasn't it?
That was at the town hall, right. But
You know, they had to vote on different things.
it was a big gathering. And, you know, all the people came there, and it seemed that everybody knew everybody else, you know.
Yes, yeah.
I don't even know half the people in town today like I did before. because I don't get around as much as I used to.
No, no, of course not.
But I was a building inspector too, for about 22 years, I think it was. And I also had to go out and when we were looking for land, we had to go do the testing on it to make sure that it was capable of taking
The perk test, maybe?
yeah, doing the perk test, but all I could think of was a toilet area.
Yeah, the septic system.
Septic system,
Right.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot what it was.
Well,
But that was quite interesting because you met some people that were fine and wanted to help you out, you know, and get mad when you said that they had to do this and that.
yes.
And but that didn't happen too often. Everybody says, no problem. Whatever you say, we'll make it right, you know. And I said, well, that's the way they want it, so that's the way we'll have to do it.
Sure, sure. Now, Newell, when you were involved in that, in building inspector, what were the lot sizes then? Because now they're a 2-acre lot. Do you remember a time when they were less than that?
There used to be 1 acres,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
then they went to 2. But I know when I got this piece of land, it was 1 acre, you know. And I said, fine, that, you know. But then, then they decided they wanted to have 2 acres, which was kind of crazy, because there was a big stream that ran under that side of the house over there, underground, you know. And I think it's still working, but now they messed it up. They made all kinds of septic systems around it.
A stream from one of the main waterways,
Right?
is that right? Yeah.
But
A lot of the farms, too. The farms were active in those
Right.
days, weren't they?
they were, yes, the farms were pretty active in those days. We had a
Garden.
garden, a big garden, you know. And we got rid of that. It was too much work.
Sure.
Couldn't bend down anymore. And of course, the kids all went to Lincoln Ackerman.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah,
That
kind of, yeah.
they did.
Yeah.
They went to Lincoln Ackerman when it was a much smaller school.
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Now, how did
Because
they?
when I got on the school board 3 years, and 2 years were quiet. In the 3rd year, somebody in town got up and said that they should think about adding on to the school, because we don't want to send all our pupils away to school, you know.
Yes.
And so I says, well, all right, let's my 3rd year, they made me the chief,
Chairman, like,
the chief chairman there, yeah. And but that was a lot of work involved in that, and a lot of talking. And we had Hampton and a couple other schools around
mm-hmm.
come over to help us throw out all the ideas on how we should build it, you know.
Uh-huh.
And they'd done a good job for us, 'cause it come out pretty good. We were wondering how we were gonna get them upstairs without climbing the stairs. You know.
Yes, yeah.
Well, they put put
An elevator?
an elevator in there
Really?
to get the kids that are handicapped upstairs without too much trouble. You know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So there wasn't much controversy at that time, was there?
At that time, no.
No. Tony?
That was my last year on the
Yes.
school board. So somebody says to me, when the voting was all over, he says, "Are you gonna go pushing that?" I says, "No." I says, "That's it. I'll keep the job of checking out the septics and stuff around town."
Maybe that was a wise choice because it
Yeah.
became pretty complicated in time to, just
did,
recently,
yeah.
really, in the last several years. Now those was the school children. When they first started going to school, were buses provided? Did a bus come here to the
Yes,
house?
yes.
It
yeah,
did.
Yeah. And the Watkins kids used to walk up Crank Road and wait for the bus, you know.
I see.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see. Yeah. What did the children do at that time? I mean, you were somewhat separated, not in a close neighborhood. Of course, yours were together. There were four of them, but were there? Today's parents are running off to basketball games and hockey games and what have you. How was that for you, Lorraine, as a mother, and keeping children entertained? And what was
Well,
that?
you know, I know the kids never were interested in sports or anything, right, either? Yeah.
No.
So they were more or less here.
Yes.
And of course, I worked too. I worked at Bondi's in Seabrook,
I
the
see.
hamburger place. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
So, and the kids took turns in taking care of the kids, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
True family, I would say.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely. Well, the winters have been different, haven't they? The winters have been different.
Much different.
Yeah.
Getting warmer every year.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
It's true. It's true. And plowing, they used to, these roads, because you're on a state road, plowing was not a problem in those days. Because we're talking.
In those days, the town made it. But the ones that were doing it good.
But you always had a tractor though, but you did ours.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Who do you recall who the road agent was then? Who was in charge of not only the plowing but other maintenance?
It was a Dick Merrill, one on the corner.
After a while he was.
He was, but who
Yeah.
was before Dick Merrill?
But
Oh heavens.
Punky Merrill
His
was,
Punky was?
he was kind of the road agent.
was he? And how about Batchelder? Were you involved in any of his workings? Were you?
I don't think so, huh?
No.
No,
Because I think that Batchelder was the one who did a lot of the road work, plowing and what
yeah,
have
he
you.
did a lot of,
Yeah.
but it's quite a bit different now than it was then. The guy that lived there, if he had a plow, he would do the road.
Is that right? Yeah. What about Route 1 now? That must have been quite different in those days as opposed to today. Do you remember any buildings that either burned down or changed location? You know, on Route 1, some of the older buildings.
No, I just know that some of them were getting taken out and building new ones there, and different stores here and a store there. And
Now, about your mail? Was your mail delivered here, or did you go to Punky's general store?
Mail was delivered.
Mm-hmm.
But Punky kept a lot of it down there too.
That's way back to remember.
Exactly. It's true. It's true. A long time ago. And that whole center is quite different now.
Right,
No.
I've been trying to think that,
In fact, one year Newell and I used to mow the cemetery. The cemetery near the church, right?
yeah, that was
Newell
one
and I
of
used to mow it in the summer.
Is it-
One year
Is it
was enough.
down?
That was,
That's the one near the church.
yeah, that one there, and a couple of the other ones got mowed too.
Yeah, that was a big job.
I'm
you
sure.
know, Yeah.
Now, the one up here near you, the Nason, on Nason Road, that was a private cemetery. Right up here across from Sunset Bridge.
Yeah, that was, all the purveyors were
Oh.
there. Anybody that lived on this road, right, could be buried there.
I see.
And we were one of them, but it got so crowded that the woman that owned it, remember that, Newell?
Yeah,
The woman that owned it stopped it, yeah, because she wanted some place for her family, you know, yeah.
Uh-huh.
But the purveyors are all up there.
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yeah. Yeah. And you were here during the whole controversy about the nuclear power plant too,
right,
and that was quite a,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
pretty interesting.
yes,
I
yes.
thought we were gonna have a lot of fights over that.
I know. Well, John Parker now was quite involved in that.
John Parker.
John Parker,
Yeah,
yes, yes, he
it's true.
was.
It's true.
And Roberta Purveyor, I think. Bobby Purveyor, I
Oh,
think.
very much so.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
yeah.
And Shirley Gustafson.
Shirley,
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Getting ready to put some shelves in there for all the roads,
Yes.
and, they come in on a Sunday it was, I guess, and they filled everything up in there. All the stuff I had cleaned up and stuff, and, you know, they knew I was doing it, but didn't make any difference, they just messed it all up, and that's when I says, I quit
Enough.
being a
enough.
building inspector. I says, you people want something done, you do it yourself.
I wonder do you recall who the selectmen were at that time, or even one of
Oh,
them?
gosh. Was it,
What's his
the
name?
one that lived on our street here?
Yeah,
That must have been in what year?
that was way back. That was,
60s or 70s?
I think it was in the 70s.
Mhm.
Newell was the inspector in the 70s.
Yeah, so it would have been about that time. A lot of changes. Did they have the stage at that time? Did they have the stage in the town hall?
Yes. Yes, they did.
Mr. Fowler, Ralph Fowler, was he on,
He was a selectman.
Yeah.
Ralph Fowler, and then the one on, Mill Lane there.
On Mill Lane.
Been so many people
Yeah, well, that's
from
true.
the beginning.
It's
you know,
true, it's true.
That's going way back, yeah.
Well, never mind, think of it right now. You are the one who possesses the Boston Post King. That's quite
That's
significant.
wonderful.
Right,
Quite,
yeah,
quite an honor
yeah.
at 93.
Yep, wonderful.
Very good.
That means you're old, Newell.
Well, that means you just keep it until you're 103.
Till I'm 100. I thought it was gonna be shorter than that.
You thought what?
I
Oh,
thought it was gonna be shorter time than that.
why? Why? Here you are, sitting comfortably in this home that you built, which is amazing, and all your family. So,
You have anything to do?
You know, I just think most of the old days were better than the new days.
You mean with all
What
the
way?
health stuff and everything?
Yeah.
in what way? Personally or just in general here in town?
Personally,
Yes, yeah.
I was a building inspector for over 20 years.
Yes, yes, yeah.
I'd done the health inspector's job too for a while.
Then when he retired, the building inspector in Northampton walked off the job, and they knew that Newell had retired here, so they hired him for
Right.
Northampton.
From
Northampton.
Northampton, yeah, yeah.
They gave me a raise too.
They should have given you a good office on the first floor. That's what they should have done.
Well, I had it all set up for the
Yes,
second floor.
sure, you were saying that, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
Well, you've done so well, and we're so grateful that you would allow us to come into the house like this, into your home, and talk to you. And you're very special people, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Think of the example that you set for so many others.